lug nut stud. This is a 7K axle, but it should be the same for pretty much all of them. These studs are just press fit in. You can see on the back side is where the heads are. And from everything that I've read and seen, we're supposed to be able to just knock this stud out. I've got a couple sizes of hammers here in a punch. We'll see what we need to do. If this was a good stud, we were trying to save it. Before we hit it with a hammer, we would put a nut on the end of it to protect the threads, but since the stud's already broken, I'm not going to worry about the threads. There's our broken stud. I'm going to take this to Dexter to get a replacement. Back from Dexter, picked up a few of these lug nut studs. This is for a 7K axle. The part number is 7-132. It's a 9/16 diameter, 2 5/16 inches long. You can't just know from the size of the axle which stud you need, because they said depending on when it was manufactured, blah, 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 they might be different. They said just bring in a good one. So I actually ended up punching out the broken stud and a good stud so that they could get a good measurement. They're less than $3 a piece, so I went ahead and picked up a couple extra. Okay. The proper way to do this is with a hydraulic press. None of us have that. Another method that I've researched that should be okay is we're just going to take the stud. We're going to drop it in here. You can see it has these splines on it. That's what keeps it from spinning once it's all the way seated. We're going to seat it here. We're going to take a good punch and hammer. We're going to give it a couple good whacks to get it started. Be careful not to damage the edges of the drum here. Okay. So once I've got it started, seated, I'm going to take a couple washers, put it on here just to kind of take up some of the space and to keep it from shaking out. And then this is just a generic lug nut. Don't use one of our cap nuts for this. If you don't have any of these, pick those up at Dexter when you pick up the studs. I'm going to put it on backwards. Make sure we start hand threading it. And I'm just going to drive this down. I'm not going to wail on it. I'm just going to pull it snug, just like you would if you're doing mounting a tire, and then we'll finish with a torque wrench. I'm going to take a look at the back. It looks fairly close. It's hard to tell. So I'm going to finish with a torque wrench and make sure it's seated all the way. I think I still have a little ways to go, but I don't want to. At this point, you can still over torque this stud and you'd end up cracking it. Now I've got my torque wrench. I'm set to 120 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and try to torque this down. The problem we're going to have is it's going to spin. So I'm going to try something that I can't guarantee is going to work. I've got something we all have, broomsticks, preferably not one that's already been used as a poop stick. And I'm going to try to keep this drum from spinning as I work on it. And if this handle breaks, it's going to be fun. All right, my torque wrench is popping. So I'm going to see if we're seated all the way. Looks pretty good from this side. The other way to check it, guys, is to measure it. The last thing we're going to do is measure it. If you just use a steel rule, you can probably get pretty close. But what we're going to do is we're going to measure the distance that this stud is sticking out from the face of the drum, and then we'll measure one of the existing ones just to make sure we're close. I have here is just a pretty generic sliding caliper. The way to use these for measuring depth is you actually use this end of the caliper, and as it extends out, you can use that as a measurement. So I'm going to measure the one I just installed first. And I'm getting 1 9/32 of an inch on this one. Pretty close. You know, it's going to be vary a little bit. 1 17/64 is pretty close. We're going to measure this one. We got 1 17/64, so 1 9/32. So looks like 1 9/32 is about what we're looking for. All right, so these are two that are already installed, and they vary a little bit. So I think as long as you're pretty close there, we're going to be all right. Now that we've got this set, guys, once everything's installed, we're gonna torque these tires or the lug nuts back down on the trailer, and then we're gonna check the torque on this stud the first few times we drive this trailer, because that stud might tighten up a little bit more, and of course that'll make the lug nut loose.